The sky above Solara bled orange and gold, as if the sun itself were hesitant to let the day die. Lara Vena stood at the edge of her ship's boarding ramp, her boots crunching against dry alien soil, eyes scanning the landscape. Massive stone arches carved by millennia of storms rose from the terrain like the ribs of some ancient, buried colossus. The atmosphere here was heavier than most frontier worlds, the oxygen thick with moisture and the scent of vegetation she couldn't name. This place wasn't on any standard star chart. It was a world that barely existed. Whispers passed between smugglers, rogue navigators, and exiles, always with the same vague promise: if you're trying to disappear, go to Solara. And Lara had been trying to disappear for a long time. Inside her, a storm raged. Not one of fear, but of grief, raw, unresolved. Grief for the mission she had failed, for the lover she had lost, and for the woman she had once been. She hadn't always been a loner. She had known family once, laughter once, love once. But now all she knew was silence. And running. She lifted her bag onto her shoulder and descended into the wilderness. Lara had been on Solara for 3 days before she saw another living soul. The forest was dense, filled with tall, spindly trees whose glowing leaves absorbed what little sunlight pierced the atmosphere. Vines twined between the branches like living veins, pulsating with some unknown energy. At night, the jungle lit with bioluminescence, transforming the forest into a dreamlike world. Beautiful, and utterly alien. She had pitched a temporary shelter near a quiet stream and spent her days scouting the terrain, logging what she could for survival: water sources, edible flora, minerals. She was trained for this, once part of a now-defunct exploration corps, but training didn't prepare you for solitude. For the ache of being absolutely, irreversibly alone. On the 4th day, while collecting crystalline root bulbs from beneath a stone ridge, she heard the sound of branches breaking, heavy, deliberate steps. She spun around, hand going to the plasma knife at her belt. And saw him. A tall figure, lean but muscular, stood a few meters away, half concealed by ferns taller than Lara herself. He was shirtless, wearing only tattered utility pants and a belt with scavenged pouches. His dark hair was pulled back, a jagged scar crossing one side of his chest. His skin was bronzed from exposure, marked by tattoos she didn't recognize. His eyes, dark, piercing, met hers with a calm curiosity. "You're not from here," he said quietly. "Neither are you," she replied, voice low and measured. A brief smile touched his lips. "I suppose we're both intruding." He stepped forward slowly, hands visible. Not threatening. Not hostile. But alert. "Name's Kale Renan," he said. Lara hesitated. "Lara. No last name?" he asked. "Not anymore." He didn't press. He simply nodded, then glanced down at her pack. "You know those root bulbs can be toxic if not peeled correctly." "I've peeled worse," she said. He gave another half-smile, the kind that flickered and died as fast as it appeared. "Fair enough." That night, she sat by her fire, Kale's warning echoing in her mind. Against her better judgment, she sliced the root bulbs, soaked them in boiling water as he had suggested, and ate sparingly. A soft warmth spread through her limbs, not euphoric, but comforting. She hated that he had been right. Hated more that it made her think of him again. The next day, he returned. They spoke more, simple things. Where she had come from. What brought her here? She lied, of course. Told him she was a freelance mechanic, burned out after years of hauling dead ships through scrapyard systems. She didn't mention her years with the Union's intelligence branch, or the covert operation that had gone so catastrophically wrong. Kale didn't press. He accepted her stories with a quiet detachment, never offering his own. He was observant, always watching, but not in a predatory way. More like someone who had learned to survive by listening before speaking. On the 6th night, the rains came. Solara's storms were brutal, sheets of water poured from a purple-black sky, accompanied by gales that tore branches from trees. Lara scrambled to stabilize her shelter, but it was quickly overwhelmed. Through the deluge, she heard a voice, "Over here." Kale's figure appeared through the rain, beckoning her. She hesitated only a moment before grabbing her pack and running. His shelter was tucked into the side of a stone cliff, reinforced with scavenged plating and thick roots. Inside, a fire crackled safely behind a shielded hearth, and supplies were stacked neatly along the walls. "You live here?" she asked, shaking out her soaked jacket. "Somewhere has to be home," he said. She set down her gear, and only then realized how cold she was. She moved toward the fire and sat cross-legged on a rough mat. "Why are you really here, Kale?" He was silent for a long time. Then, "Because nowhere else would have me." Lara didn't ask for more. They sat in silence, the firelight casting flickering shadows on the walls. But when she looked at him, really looked, she saw the same thing that lived inside her, a wound that had never healed. Not a visible one, but a quiet grief, buried deep. Days became weeks. Lara moved her gear to Kale's shelter, though the decision was never spoken aloud. It simply happened, a natural shift, like two bodies orbiting the same point in space. She cooked while he foraged. He repaired solar collectors while she patched their clothing. They never called it companionship. But it was. They touched only in small ways. A brush of the hand when passing tools. A nudge of a shoulder when working side by side. Yet each contact sent a quiet thrill through Lara's chest, something she refused to name. One night, as stars shimmered through the trees, she looked up at him and asked, "Did you lose someone too?" Kale didn't answer right away. "Yes," he said finally. "A long time ago." Lara turned away. "Me too." Silence again. But not the empty kind. The understanding kind. It was the kiss that changed everything. They had returned from a hunt, Kale nursing a slash across his forearm from a feral lizard. Lara sat close, cleaning the wound, her fingers careful. His skin was warm under her touch, his breathing shallow. She looked up, and he was looking at her. Not just at her. Into her. And it broke something. He leaned forward, slow and deliberate. Gave her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met, soft and searching at first, then deepening as weeks of repressed longing cracked like a dam. It wasn't urgent, or frenzied. It was tender. A declaration in silence. After, they sat against the wall, arms entangled, the firelight painting soft amber across their skin. "I didn't think I'd ever feel something like that again," Lara whispered. "Neither did I. But peace doesn't last on Solara." It was near dusk when the sky split with the sharp hum of engines. Lara and Kale emerged from the shelter to see a ship descending, a Federation patrol cruiser, standard issue, marked with the Union seal. Lara froze. Only a handful of people knew she was alive. Fewer still had access to her biotag data. "Lara," Kale said carefully, "do you know them?" She couldn't lie. "They're looking for me." Kale's jaw tightened. "Do they mean you harm?" "Not at first. But when they learn what I know, what I saw, they won't let me leave." He reached for her hand. "Then we run." "No," she said, heart pounding. "Not again." She turned and met his eyes. "Kale, I don't want to keep running. I want to stay. With you." He looked down, voice low. "Then we fight." Lara had hidden her past for so long, it had become second nature. But Kale, he had begun to unearth her. Strip back the layers. And for the first time in years, she wanted to be seen. She wasn't just a runaway. She wasn't just a ghost from a forgotten war. She was still Lara Vena. She still had something left to fight for. Not vengeance. Not redemption. Love. The city of Virios shimmered beneath the translucent dome that separated it from the toxic winds outside. Built on the surface of Niros V, an ocean-covered moon orbiting a failed star, the city was a technological marvel, suspended on reinforced pillars deep into the crust, surrounded by a sea that glowed faintly under the night sky. Zara Tellin sat alone in the observatory deck, her reflection cast in soft light against the domed glass. Below, neon-lit corridors stretched like glowing veins through the underwater districts. Above, the faded pulse of Niros V's artificial orbit made the stars feel somehow dimmer. She adjusted the collar of her lab coat, though she hadn't worked in a lab in over a year. Her fingers fidgeted with the copper ring hanging on a chain around her neck, a gift from a man she hadn't seen in nearly 5 years. Eric Lavin. She whispered the name without meaning to, as though the emptiness of the dome might answer back. He had been her partner in everything, research, discovery, and life. Until he wasn't. Until he made a choice that shattered everything they had built. When the truth about Project Virion came out, when she had uncovered what the Federation had really used her calculations for, she had walked away from all of it. But some ghosts don't stay buried. Especially not on Niros. A soft chime sounded from the hallway behind her, and Zara turned, snapping out of her thoughts. The door slid open, and in walked Finn Darren, wearing that crooked smile that made people forget he was a smuggler. "You're early," Zara said, surprised. "I got bored of waiting in the docking bay," he said. "And you said this was urgent." "It is." She turned back toward the viewport. "You ever hear of a weapon called the Core Echo?" Finn shrugged. "Heard whispers. Some say it's a myth. Others say it's a WMD cloaked in a science project. It's real." Her voice was sharper than she intended. "And it's on this moon." Finn raised an eyebrow. "You're sure?" "I'm sure," she said. "And it gets worse. The original activation code is encrypted inside an ancient artifact, a physical relic the Federation can't crack. But I can." Finn folded his arms, his expression turning serious. "And you want to find it before they do?" "No," Zara said. "I want to destroy it." They left the domed city the next morning, traveling in Finn's modest ship, the Silence Between. It was small, sleek, and patched together with parts from a dozen star systems, but it was fast. "Remind me why I agreed to this again?" Finn asked as they flew low over the ocean's surface. "Because you owe me 3 favors," Zara said, smirking. "And I'm cashing in all of them." He grinned but said nothing. Beneath the banter, though, something stirred in both of them. Finn had been orbiting her life for nearly a year now, quietly helping with small research recoveries, shadowing her from system to system. He claimed it was about the favors. But Zara had long stopped believing that. She glanced at him now, the way his eyes narrowed when focusing on the NAV screen, the way he unconsciously chewed the inside of his cheek when piloting through tricky airspace. There was something different about Finn. He didn't pry, didn't demand her story, didn't expect her to be anything other than who she was. That alone was rare. And dangerous. They landed at Delvora Trench, a deep-sea research station abandoned decades ago after a containment breach. Federation blueprints had marked it as decommissioned, but Zara knew better. Below the surface, somewhere in the pressurized vaults, was the relic. As they descended in a 2-person submersible, the light above faded, replaced by the eerie bioluminescence of Niros V's sea creatures. Long, snake-like forms drifted past, trailing electric hues across the windows. Zara's voice was soft, uncertain. "Eric and I built the first prototypes for the Core Echo here." Finn's eyes flicked toward her. "What happened between you?" She didn't answer at first. Then, he believed knowledge should be used, no matter the cost. "I didn't." "And you walked away?" "Yes." "From him?" "From everything." Finn's jaw clenched slightly. "You still care about him?" Zara looked at the shifting shadows beyond the glass. I don't know. Finn didn't respond, but something in the silence between them deepened. The silence between, indeed. Inside the facility, silence reigned. The old station was dark, illuminated only by the submersible's portable lights and flickering backup systems. Rust and corrosion had eaten through most of the metal. Zara led the way with a scanner, moving with a kind of haunted grace, as if each step took her closer to something she didn't want to face. Finn watched her carefully. She had always carried herself like someone on the edge of remembering something painful. But down here, that edge was razor thin. They reached the inner vault after 3 hours of manual unlocking, bypassing collapsed bulkheads and security overrides. In the center of the vault, hovering in a stasis field, was a crystalline object shaped like a tetrahedron. It pulsed with slow, rhythmic light. "The relic," Zara whispered. "It holds the keys to the weapon's final protocol." "Then let's destroy it," Finn said. But before she could answer, the airlock door behind them hissed open. 2 figures entered, clad in dark exosuits. One raised a plasma rifle. And the second stepped forward, removing his helmet. Zara's breath caught. Eric Laven. He hadn't changed. Same sharp features, same intense eyes. But there was something colder now, harder in the set of his mouth. His eyes flicked to Zara, then to Finn, before settling back on her. "Zara," he said, almost fondly. She didn't move. "You shouldn't be here." "I could say the same." Finn stepped in front of her. "Put the weapon down." Eric raised a brow. "And you must be the stray she picked up in my absence." Zara's voice cut like a blade. "He's more loyal than you ever were." Eric smirked, but his eyes didn't leave her. "You came back. I knew you would." "I came to finish what we started," she said. "To end it." His expression darkened. "You think you can end this? This isn't just a weapon. It's evolution. Controlled entropy. Power beyond understanding. It's murder," she whispered. "And I won't let you use it." They stared at each other for a long moment. The past, once buried, now hovered in the room like radiation. Then, in a sudden move, Finn lunged for the relic's containment console. Shots rang out. Glass shattered. Zara screamed as the stasis field imploded. The tetrahedron dropped to the floor with a heavy clink, glowing brighter, faster. Eric cursed and scrambled for it. But Finn was faster. He kicked the relic toward Zara and tackled Eric. "Zara, go." She hesitated, one last glance at Eric, whose eyes weren't angry now, just betrayed. She turned and ran. They escaped the vault as alarms blared behind them. The submersible barely made it back to the surface, its hull dented and leaking from Eric's team's counterfire. Back aboard the ship, Zara collapsed into a chair, cradling the artifact in her lap. Her hands trembled. Finn knelt beside her. "Are you okay?" "No," she said. "But we have it." He nodded, then cupped her face gently, searching her expression. "Tell me the truth, Zara. Do you still love him?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know." His thumb brushed a tear away. "Do you want to find out?" She hesitated. "No," she said. "I want to forget him." Then she kissed him. There was no hesitation. No second guessing. Just warmth, longing, and something Zara hadn't let herself feel in years, hope. As the ship soared away from Nairo's V, Zara stared out at the stars, her head resting on Finn's shoulder. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. But deep in her heart, she knew this wasn't over. Not with Eric still alive. And not with the core echo still glowing. The space station Domera 6 hung above a blue gas giant, encased in layers of energy shielding and iron-gray alloy. Designed for scientific research but now repurposed for tactical surveillance, it was the last civilian facility before the border systems fell into silence, uncharted space where even the Federation feared to tread. Inside the command atrium, Eris Avon, former communications officer turned reluctant intelligence analyst, stood with her arms crossed, staring at the star maps projected above her. Her eyes, once filled with dreams of exploration, had become sharp, analytical. Years of watching wars bloom and collapse on screens had chipped away the softness she used to have. Behind her, footsteps echoed. "Knew I'd find you here," came a familiar voice, low, slightly hoarse, and painfully familiar. She turned slowly. Kian Roll stood there, tall and worn down by the years, but still carrying that quiet confidence that used to drive her mad. He hadn't changed much, same storm-gray eyes, same fighter's stance. A scar now traced along his left cheek, a reminder of battles fought long after they'd parted ways. "Kian," she said flatly. "It's been a while." 3 years, 2 months, she replied, biting back the emotion in her throat. "Not that I was counting." He chuckled, but it faded quickly. "I didn't come to reopen old wounds." "No." She narrowed her eyes. "Then why are you here?" "I thought you left the Corps." "I did," he said. "Until I saw this." He tossed a datapad onto the console. It lit up with the image of a pulsing geometric shape. The Core Echo. Eris stiffened. "Where did you get this?" "Intercepted transmission. Encrypted Federation Black Channel. They're mobilizing fleets to track a group of unauthorized scientists. One of them's named Zara Tellin." She stared at the image, her jaw tightening. "I know that name. She used to be with Eric Lavin. Brilliant physicist. Went dark years ago. She's surfaced again. With the Echo." Eris picked up the datapad. "And you came here why?" "Because I need someone who can help me figure out where it's going. And because you used to be the best analyst in the sector. And..." He hesitated, then looked her straight in the eye. "And because I never should have left you behind." It wasn't the first time Kian had asked for her help. But it was the first time the stakes felt personal. The Core Echo wasn't just dangerous. It was catastrophic. A weapon created by mathematical anomalies, capable of altering spacetime on a microcosmic scale. Nobody truly understood how it worked. Only that once activated, it couldn't be deactivated. And it left nothing behind. Eris led Kian down the narrow corridors of Domera 6 toward the secure lower decks, where the old war vaults were still intact, data archives from previous crises. The station was mostly automated, but a few researchers remained. One of them was Alina Vex, a soft-spoken astrobiologist with a penchant for old Earth poetry and high-grade caffeine. Alina raised an eyebrow when Kian entered with Eris. "You bring all your X's to classified levels?" she asked Eris. "He's the exception," Eris muttered. "I bet he is," Alina said, handing Eris a tablet. "Your anomaly appeared here, last jump trace, on a relay satellite near Sector Vornal. Uncharted space." Kian leaned over the tablet. "You're sure?" "Cross-referenced gravitational ripples and quantum noise." Alina sipped her tea. "That's where they're headed." Eris looked between the data and Kian. "We have one chance to intercept them." They left the station that night aboard a retrofitted military cutter called the Vela Ghost, Eris at the helm, Kian in the gunner seat, and Alina manning sensors. The ship wasn't pretty, but it was fast, and it ran on a shield matrix Kian had liberated from his last command post. As they sped toward Vornal, the stars stretched out into streaks, warping space around them. Kian and Eris sat in silence for a while. "You're still angry," he said at last. She kept her eyes on the flight path. "Wouldn't you be? I was following orders. You abandoned me. You left me on a burning world with nothing but a comm unit and a shutdown protocol." His jaw clenched. It wasn't that simple. You made it simple when you walked away. She felt his gaze but didn't return it. The tension between them was a wound still half open, still fresh beneath the scab of professionalism. After a moment, she added quietly, I waited for you, Kian. I waited. He looked down at his hands. I never stopped thinking about you. She didn't answer. The ship emerged from hyperspace into the cold emptiness of Sector Vornal. No stars here, just a silent black void broken by drifting asteroids and the occasional electromagnetic echo of long-dead beacons. Then the signal lit up. Alina's console beeped. I've got something. Unmarked ship. Mid-range signature. Looks like a science vessel. Light shields, no weapons. That's them, Eris said. She piloted closer, bringing the cutter into a shadow trajectory behind a derelict freighter. On screen, the ship floated silently, engines warm but not moving. They're not running, Kian said. Because they're already where they want to be, Eris replied. They're activating it. They docked manually, cutting through the vacuum between ships. Eris led the way, plasma pistol in hand, Kian flanking her, Alina staying behind to monitor the link. The airlock hissed open. Inside, soft blue lights glowed against sterile white walls. They stepped carefully, scanning corners, doors. Then, movement. A figure emerged at the far end of the hallway. A man with copper-colored eyes and an expression both calm and unhinged. Aero Rhine. Eris Avon, he said, smiling. We've been expecting you. Aero was one of the Federation's brightest, once a child prodigy, now a rogue theoretician obsessed with artificial entropy. He had once shared a lab with Zara, and now he stood at the heart of the activation chamber, guarding the relic. We don't have to fight, Aero said. You're too smart for that. Eris raised her weapon. Where's Zara? She left. With the key. The core echo has no power without it. She left you? Kian asked. Aero's face flickered with anger. She doesn't understand what this can be. None of you do. She understands better than anyone, Eris said. And she's trying to stop the end of everything. Aero's hand twitched. A concealed weapon. Kian moved first, knocking Aero to the ground, pinning his wrist. Eris approached the relic, now pulsing steadily. Then she paused. Something was wrong. The relic wasn't just humming with energy, it was responding to them. To her. Her vision swam. She felt the ship fade away, the stars closing in. Flashes of light. Screams. A child. A tower collapsing. A world erased. Kian grabbed her. Eris. She gasped, shoving the vision away. It's not just a weapon. It's alive. Aero grinned from the floor. Now you see. Kian slammed the butt of his rifle into Aero's jaw, knocking him unconscious. Eris fell to her knees. The echo pulsed once, and then went dark. Back on the Vela Ghost, Eris sat in the infirmary, shaking. Kian hovered nearby, his concern etched across his face. You saw something, he said. Too much, she whispered. Memories that weren't mine. Emotions. Entire timelines. He sat beside her. Can you stop it? I don't know. But I think I know what Zara's trying to do. The relic isn't just data. It's a prison. A consciousness. If it reaches the wrong mind, it becomes something worse than any weapon. He reached for her hand. She let him. I missed you, he said softly. She looked at him, truly looked. Past the regrets, the battles, the betrayal. I missed us, she replied. And this time, she leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder, their fingers laced together. Far away, another signal echoed across the galaxy. A new player had entered the field. And the echo wasn't done. Not yet. The ship Azrael drifted silently between stars, its hull coated in reflective nanocarbon that rendered it nearly invisible against the black. The stars out here were sparse, distant beacons from a galaxy that had grown quieter, more cautious, since whispers of the core echo began spreading like a virus through both the net and rumor. Inside the ship, Mira Valen adjusted the scope on her long-range scanner and exhaled slowly. Her breaths always felt slower in deep space, like the silence seeped into her lungs. She leaned back in the pilot's chair and glanced across the cockpit at Soren Vale, the man who had both saved and complicated her life in equal measure. Soren leaned forward over a cracked console, his stubbled jaw locked in concentration, fingers tapping commands into the encrypted holomap. He had the kind of presence that demanded attention even in stillness, broad-shouldered, faded jacket, messy black hair always falling across one eye. And his voice, when he chose to use it, was low, thoughtful, as if everything he said had been double-checked against the weight of the stars. "You're quiet," Mira said. "You're always quiet," he replied. She smiled faintly. "We can't both be brooding. That would be redundant." Soren looked up and actually smiled back. "You win. I'll be the grim one today. I'll take the sarcastic role." They had been traveling together for 6 months now, since Myra's last station had been destroyed in what the Federation called a containment incident. She knew better. She had seen the fracture point, felt the gravitational warping, heard the last screams echoing through the comms before everything went white. The core echo had touched that world, and left nothing behind but ghosts. Now she and Soren were chasing it. Or maybe running from it. It was hard to tell anymore. They weren't alone on this mission. Aboard the Azrael's lower deck, Jace Ronan, a tactical analyst with more bravado than caution, was polishing a modified repeater rifle and telling another elaborate story to Calix Rowe, a reserved medic with warm brown eyes and a habit of always watching without speaking. "And that's when I told the guy, if you're gonna shoot, shoot, but don't monologue," Jace said, grinning. Calix didn't smile, but his eyes sparkled. "You do realize no one believes half the stories you tell, right?" "Sure, but they want to believe them," Jace said, slinging the rifle over his shoulder. "That's the magic." "Some of us prefer truth to theatrics," Calix replied gently. Jace raised an eyebrow. "You say that, but you've followed me across 3 sectors and 2 assassination attempts." "I follow Mira," Calix said. "You just happen to be in the way." Jace clutched his heart in mock pain. Cold, Roe. So cold. Later that night, Mira stood alone in the observation dome, staring at the distant shimmer of a system named Alexa, an unstable zone rumored to house a dormant echo fragment. It had once been a mining colony before the mineral extraction triggered tectonic collapse. Now, nothing lived there. Nothing touched it. Except the relic. She sensed movement behind her and didn't need to look. Soren. He stood beside her, arms folded, gazing silently at the void. "Do you ever wonder," Mira said, "if this is all just too big for us?" "All the time," he replied. "I used to think knowledge could fix things. If we understood what the echo really was, maybe we could contain it. Reason with it." Soren's jaw tensed. "You still think it's sentient?" "I know it is," she said. "I saw it tear open space above Delvora. It didn't lash out, it responded. It chose." Soren finally turned to face her. "And what do you think it's choosing now?" She didn't answer. He stepped closer. "Mira, if we find it again, and it offers you a choice, are you going to take it?" She met his eyes. "Would you stop me?" "I'd go with you." The air between them stilled. His eyes searched hers, not for answers, but for permission. And something unspoken passed between them. A gravity stronger than words. But before it could turn into something more, the ship's comm crackled. Jace's voice came through, "We've got a proximity alert, pirate code signature." Either they don't know who we are, or they're stupid. Soren swore. Back to work. Mira didn't move. Soren. He looked at her. Be careful. He nodded. Always. They didn't get time to prepare. The pirate ship dropped out of FTL just kilometers away, an old Dominion gunboat, retrofitted with ion cannons and hull spikes. The Azrael was outgunned, outmatched, and severely lacking in shields. In the chaos of evasive maneuvers, Mira stayed on helm while Soren launched countermeasures. Jace took to the gunner seat, firing precision blasts to disable rather than destroy, until the enemy boarded. They came fast, armored, masked, feral. But this crew wasn't helpless. Soren fought like a ghost, blades drawn, silent and efficient. Mira moved through the corridors with a plasma baton, ducking and striking with the precision of someone who had survived far worse. In the med bay, Calix stood guard over their systems, firing carefully, always aiming to wound. But it was Jace who held the line. Pinned behind a bulkhead, he shouted to Mira through the comm, "They're trying to reach the vault. They know what we're carrying." "The echo fragment?" she asked, breathless. "Either that or your stash of ration bars." She rolled her eyes. "On my way." When the dust cleared, the pirates were gone, either dead or retreating. Mira knelt beside Soren, who sat bleeding from a gash across his ribs. She pressed gauze to the wound, anger flashing in her eyes. "You always have to be the hero," she muttered. He smiled through the pain. "Only when you're watching." She tried not to smile. Failed. Calix arrived with a medkit, brushing her hand aside to apply sealant. "He's fine. You're more shaken than he is." "I'm fine," she said. But later, alone in the corridor, she let herself feel it. Not just the fear of losing someone again, but the fear of letting herself feel something real. That night, after repairs, she found Soren sitting in the engine bay, watching the energy core hum. "You should be resting," she said. He looked up. "You too." They sat in silence for a while. Finally, she asked, "What do you see in me?" He turned to her. "You mean besides the fire, the brains, the stubborn streak that scares off everyone else?" She tilted her head, trying not to smirk. "Yes, besides those. I see someone who hasn't given up." "Not really. Even when you say you have." Her breath caught. "I've been alone a long time," she whispered. "You're not alone now." And this time, when she leaned forward, when her hand reached his cheek and her lips brushed his. He didn't pull away. He pulled her closer. Their kiss was slow, hesitant, like neither of them wanted to break whatever fragile spell had finally drawn them together. When they finally parted, Mira rested her forehead against his. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," he whispered. "But I want this." He nodded. "Me too." Outside, the stars continued to burn. But for a moment, aboard the Azrael, they felt small and far away. Later, Mira opened the encrypted vault. The echo fragment pulsed softly inside its containment field, responding to her presence. And for the first time, it whispered back. Not in words. But in memory. She saw Soren. Not as he was, but as he had been, a child. Alone. Afraid. Left behind by a system that forgot him. She saw the pain he never spoke of, the sorrow he carried like armor. And then she saw herself, through his eyes. Brilliant. Fierce. Worth saving. When she opened her eyes again, the fragment glowed warmer. Almost, gentle. The core echo had changed. And it had chosen her.